Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another webinar by OSH Services. This is the 8th webinar in our webinar series 2020, and we're still going to have some few more after this. And today we have with us Dr. Tutula Balfour from the Mineral Council of South Africa. Actually, she was in Nairobi. Was it in November last year? Yes. Now, Dr. Balfour, our speaker today, is a qualified medical doctor and public health medicine specialist with an MBA. He has a wealth of management experience that spans 23 years, 13 of which have been at the strategic level. The experience was gained in varied settings across the public and private sectors. His strength lies in strategic leadership and analysis, advocacy and lobbying, project and financial management, and stakeholder management. He has a certificate in board leadership from the Gordon Institute of Business Science and is a member of the Institute of Directors of South Africa. She has served on several boards, including the Medical University of South Africa, Department of Labor's Compensation Board, and Department of Mineral Resources, Mines, Health and Safety Committee. Currently serves on the board of a non-government organization. We are in theater art board and look at this. And the board of South African Business Coalition on Health and AIDS. So a well-rounded guest to talk to us about how to improve occupational safety and health through tripartite cooperation. Welcome to the webinar, Dr. Tula, and the floor is yours. Normally, we take questions at the end of the presentation. So you take your presentation, and questions will be put in the chat. And once you've done, then we'll take the questions, and we'll have some discussions. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Abdul Kadir, and a good day, ladies and gentlemen. I decided to say good day because it can be morning or evening or during the day. So good day covers everyone. As Kadir had said, I did visit Nairobi last year. That is after the OSH Africa conference in South Africa. And at that time, we were giving a report back and handing over to Nairobi, which is the next convener or host of the OSH Africa conference. And I must say that looking at this year and the havoc that COVID has caused, we are actually quite pleased that we did have our conference last year and didn't have to postpone, as everyone has had to in recent days. So on that note, I would like to thank the organizers very much for the opportunity to present to you on a topic really which we live on a daily basis in my work. And I hope what I present will be of interest to you and you will learn something. Now, why is this not moving? Okay. I'm gonna talk to you about, I'll start off, I was given this topic, which is tripartism in the context of occupational health and safety. So I'll go through the definition, the simple definition of tripartism, the international statutes that govern this, and also the international statutes on health and safety, because the topic is tripartism within health and safety. And I'll then talk about the South African tripartite structures and our OHS legislative framework. And I will zoom in on the Mine Health and Safety Council as an example of tripartism, the one that I say I live every day. I mean, example, this week, I've got 3 meetings in my week, which are in the Mine Health and Safety Council. And I'll talk about the challenges of that tripartism and the benefits, and then the conclusion. Tripartism, the simple definition, it says it's the active interactions among government, so it's 3 parties, government, workers, and employers, equal, independent social partners. And I think that's what we need to emphasize. When we are in a tripartite, we're all equal. There's no one who is, sort of supposed to have a final word over the others. It's an interactive, active interaction so that we seek joint solutions which benefit the 3 parties that are involved. And partners need to be willing to reach and to respect agreements that they have reached. So you can't today agree to something and then tomorrow, you have changed your mind. That is not how it works, which is why actually tripartism works such that each party has a mandate from its constituency, and it goes to these discussions, with that mandate, so that they have like a parameter within which to work. And I guess the worst is for you to be involved in a tripartite engagement where one party does not have a mandate, and therefore when decisions have been taken, then they can renege on those because they did not have a mandate in the first place. And of course, partners must be committed, they must be competent, and they must be active, because there's nothing as bad as, you put in this much into the tripartite discussions, but the other parties are really not coming to the party. And so in a way, you are not having that active engagement. There are statutes, as I said, Convention 144 of the ILO is on tripartite consultation, and it talks about ensuring effective consultations, and again, between the 3 parties, government, employers, and labor. And it talks about, employers and workers being on an equal footing. So whether you are the CEO or you are the manager who is in that tripartite forum, you do not have a bigger voice than the person who is representing labor or the state in that environment. Although, of course, the state usually has an upper hand in this, in that they do have legislation that they can sort of put through, although even that actually is also agreed upon in a tripartite manner. Just to show you how many countries have ratified this convention, 2/3 of countries in the world have ratified Convention 144 on tripartism. And if you note, most of the countries that have not, ratified, or they are in the process of ratifying, are in Africa. And I think that says something about our continent, that we need to do more to ensure that we ratify. So notably Angola, in Southern Africa, and Somalia, and mainly Northern African countries. If I now turn to, the occupational health and safety conventions, we've got Convention 155, which governs occupational safety and health. And some of its articles are to do with the formulation and implementation of a coherent national policy on OSH and the working environment. And the aim of that policy should be to prevent accidents and injury to health. Sorry about that. Oh no, I'm going forward.
Go the other way.
I thought if I, I think let me start.
And then,
yeah, because it looks like my scrolling, is not so accurate. Let me do one scroll at a time. Okay. And so some of the features of the Convention 155 regarding adaptation of machinery, this is really about the protection of workers, such that all machinery is takes into account the physical and mental capabilities of workers. There's training involved, there's communication and cooperation, and also the protection of workers and their representatives. If there's anything to do with this convention, then they are protected, within that policy that a company or a country would have put up and which the companies would need to abide by. Again, some of the spheres covered in that convention is the inspection, which most of us have got inspection authorities for occupational health and safety, and the right to refuse dangerous work, which I think is something that is not promoted enough, so that employees know that they do have a right to refuse dangerous work. The ratification of Convention 155, we have 35 African countries that have not ratified. That's quite a lot of countries. And I've just picked up just the ones in the SADC region, which have not ratified. So that's quite a number of countries which have not ratified. And again, I think it underlines the fact that, as Africa, African countries, we need to do far more to ensure that we do ratify, these conventions. In South Africa, what then are our tripartite structures? We've got, at a national level, a superstructure called NEDLEC. It's the National Economic Development and Labor Council. It's a tripartite structure, but it actually goes beyond the three usual suspects. It also includes community organizations. And it's not just on health and safety, it's on economics, on labor, and on developmental issues. But I've just got a few examples for you on how occupational health and safety is also impacted by or is also in the purview of NEDLEC. An example, all legislation that goes to Parliament has to go through NEDLEC. Examples are, we've got currently the revision of our Occupational Health and Safety Act, which is at NEDLEC. In fact, it has passed through NEDLEC. So it is a requirement. If anything is going to affect business or it's going to affect labor, then it has got to go through NEDLEC. And so it's quite a powerful institution. And again, any constituency can raise some issues at NEDLEC. And an example I'm using here is, if a union, organized labor, has got even maybe they believe that there's just too many fatalities due to occupational health and safety, they can actually go to NEDLEC and they apply to protest, over that occupational health and safety issue. And we've had many marches, especially to my organization, which is the Minerals Council. We used to be the Chamber of Mines of South Africa. And if you know South Africa, then you know that mining was one of the foundations of our economy. And mining was also very closely related to the old apartheid government. And so even now, when people are marching, I always say, in South Africa, you can't march on the government, buildings, because it's no longer the National Party, the old National Party, it's the ruling party, which is the ANC. You can't find the National Party, it disbanded long ago, but the Chamber of Mines is there. So when people march, they actually always include in their, itinerary, a march on the Chamber of Mines, which is now the Minerals Council. So I'm just illustrating that even at that highest level, you can still have occupational health and safety issues, being a key issue under discussion. Here I'm just showing you the South African Occupational Health and Safety legislative framework. And the key message really is that it is fragmented, and I hope that in your countries it's not as fragmented. We've actually got three departments: Department of Labor, the Department of Minerals and Energy, or Department of Minerals Resources now and Energy, and the Department of Health. We actually haven't quite managed to implement a policy in South Africa that is far more cohesive, where you've got a single national occupational health and safety entity, and you then have maybe different categories like the mines and factories, whatever, under this one entity. So it really doesn't make life easy, but that's not the main focus of this presentation. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that we do have areas where we can improve on, and one of them is the coordination of our occupational health and safety legislation. Now, to come to my case study, which is the Mine Health and Safety Council. This is the tripartite structure in the mining industry, which has got its formulation, or it's established under the Mine Health and Safety Act, which, you know, is the one overseeing or regulating all of our health and safety in the mining industry. So this council has got a board which has got the three stakeholders: the state, labor, and employers. And as I said, it's a very equal, you know, we are all equal in that structure. Our representation is the same in terms of numbers. The state chairs the council as well as all the other committees. And when it comes to labor, I have to say, South Africa has one of the most unionized, you know, labor forces. And part of it was due to our history of exploitation. And so workers needed to fight for their rights. And therefore, we've got very organized labor. And at the Mine Health and Safety Council, they've got their labor caucus. We have 4 unions, and they all manage to, you know, spread themselves in terms of representation at the board, which is the highest level organization, and also at the various committees. If you look, this is the board. I hope you can see the cursor there. And below the board, we've got various committees. The one committee is on regulations, and it's the one that oversees the production of legislation and regulations and guidelines. We also have a committee on mine occupational health, and it also then looks at health policies, health information, and health regulations. We have a culture transformation advisory committee, which looks at culture transformation, and a safety in mines research. In fact, it's safety and health in mines research. And actually, the key initial focus of this council was research on how to improve health and safety. And even now, we actually spend far more of our funds on research. We also have another committee on HIV and AIDS and TB, and we've recently added a committee on women in mining. So on all of these committees, we have got tripartite representatives, and they make recommendations to the board, and the board advises the minister. And regulations and other, you know, forms of improvements to health and safety are then effected. This is our business model at the Mine Health and Safety Council, where essentially we've got as inputs the levies, which are from companies, and are actually also based on your safety and health performance. So the more fatalities you have, the more you pay. And it's like an incentive so that you reduce the harm that you cause, which means that you pay less levies. We also have data that is collected at the Mine Health and Safety Act, at the Mine Health and Safety Council. And some of the things we do are, you know, the tripartite, the coordination of tripartite engagements through the committees I talked about, research, which mainly is done through partners or through the council itself by engaging consultants. We also review legislation and liaise with other organizations. These are just some of, the activities. And the outputs being milestones, we are very setting of milestones, aspirational milestones for ourselves is a very key part of what we do to try and motivate ourselves on, improving health and safety. And so at all times, we have got a 10-year cycle of milestones. The first time these milestones were set was in 2013, and we try to go beyond what is regulated. If, for instance, our OEL for dust is a certain level, then we will set a milestone which is half of that OEL. And it's all in a bid to really fast track us, removing harm in the work environment. So currently we are in a phase of milestones that were set in 2014, and we are supposed to achieve those by 2024. And we have twice or biennial summits of our principals of the three parties, where we review progress that has been made on the milestones. So it's a very big part of what we do and really assists us in driving performance on occupational health and safety. And this actually, when you get to the Minerals Council, we have got a whole system of submission of performance by our companies on health and safety in line with the milestones, and we periodically, quarterly, then report to our CEOs so that we are able to show them whether we are on track in meeting the milestones or we are not. And I must say that it's a very powerful tool in that, when you have, let's say in a meeting, you show the results of 12 companies on how they are performing on health and safety. Even in class, you would know if maybe you got 80% in maths, you might think, I'm really doing well. But if you find that other people are actually getting 100%, you will up your game. So that's the principle we use, with our members, where we present, and people are always striving to do better in terms of their own performance and also the performance in their commodities or in the industry. And we really find that quite useful. Again, some of the outputs of the Mine Health and Safety Council are policies, as I said, and regulations. And the actual impact we are looking for is improved performance on occupational health and safety, and also strengthened tripartite relations, which I must say, having served, for 10 years on this committee, on the board, the relations that we had 10 years ago are really quite different. Over time, we learn to work better with each other. It's no longer about point scoring, it's about what is best for the worker. And therefore, we always are trying to get the best for the worker, not just for employers or just for labor or even the state. These are some of the examples, of legislation that has been put out, guidelines, for the compilation, for instance, here, of a mandatory code of practice for the prevention of flammable gases and explosives in a colliery. This is an example of a workshop and conferences, and again, research. And on that, I can say you can go to our website. I've put it at the end of the presentation, the website for the Mine Health and Safety Council. If you go there, you will see research and find research reports that have been compiled, from long ago. And I mean, there's a lot. In fact, part of what we say we don't do enough of is the dissemination of the research and the application of the research. So in terms of research, we've done quite a lot of research, but we are challenging ourselves on the implementation of that research. And again, we also organize tripartite regional forums. So South Africa has got 9 provinces, but we actually have about 5 main, mining provinces. Although we do run the regional tripartite forums in all of the provinces, but most of the meetings would be in the mining provinces, where again, the companies that are in those provinces would go for a day and they hear about the latest research, or maybe if there's a new guideline, then it's an explanation of how the guideline is to be applied. And we find that very useful for, implementation of legislation. This is just to show you some of the outcomes of all of this, where, for instance, as I said, one of the key aims really of the Mine Health and Safety Council is to improve performance. And here I'm illustrating with safety performance. The top blue is fall of grounds. The red is transportation and mining. And the last is general. These are fatalities in the industry. Unfortunately, I don't have, the graph of total fatalities, but you can see that the trend has been going down. This is from 1993 to 2019. And safety actually has an advantage in that it's got a system in place, which is electronic. And so data is available on a real-time basis in terms of on a daily basis. I mean, for instance, I can tell you now that today we are on 35 fatalities in the industry for this year. And this is in contrast to health, where we haven't yet automated things enough. We rely a lot on annual medical reports, and therefore our reporting does tend then to be, a year behind. But as you can see, these are some of the achievements. And again, if you look at the milestones here, in 1996, it was the promulgation of the Mine Health and Safety Act, which established the Mine Health and Safety Council that I'm talking about. And in 2003, it was the first time we set the milestones for ourselves for 10 years, and therefore they expired in 2013. And we reviewed our progress and set new milestones in 2014, which are then going to expire in 2024. And through this, as I said, you find that we are gradually ensuring that, there is a reduction in fatalities. Again, here I'm showing an example of improvements in occupational health performance. It's from 2008 to 2018, and it has not been as dramatic as the safety one, but again, the top red bar is TB, where in 2008, we had more than 4,500 cases of occupational TB. And maybe I need to explain that in South Africa, most of the TB in the mining industry is deemed to be occupational TB. There are definitions, for it to be deemed occupational. And that has gone down from about 4,500 cases in 2008 to about 465 about 1,716 in 2018. The same, but not as dramatic, decline has happened for silicosis. Although you will appreciate that silicosis has got a long time, lead. So this isn't showing the development now, but it's people that had been exposed years before. Again, on noise-induced hearing loss, 2,000, and now we are still above 1,000, which is not good enough. And so, in fact, no, it's about 886, just below 1,000. So again, all of this, what you measure, it means then you are able to control. That is our motto. And so we do sort of measure all of these and are able to see if we are making progress or we are not. If I may then just talk to the successes of the Mine Health and Safety Act as an example of tripartism, we've got a budget at the council of about $8 million per year, mainly from employers, and a research program with universities as collaborative partners. And as I said, we've been setting milestones for ourselves, which are stretch targets. Oh no, I don't want to go back. But again, I think, some of the successes are to do with what we have achieved in all of those years. Maybe let me, for your benefit, just go back there again. It's not so difficult. The workshops that we have conducted, the conferences, vibrant, OHS is very vibrant and people are very involved, and it actually gives an opportunity, especially for labor. For instance, if there's a conference, then the Mine Health and Safety Council will pay for the organized labor representatives to come to the conference. So then they are able to participate fully. And it's not that, they are hamstrung by, resources. We also now are finding a lot of support for organized labor initiatives. So organized labor can come with a proposal to the Mine Health and Safety Council and say maybe they want to conduct a campaign on silicosis to sensitize their members, and the Mine Health and Safety Council pays for that. So it really is working. The challenges. The challenges have, everything has got its challenges. The issue of loyalty to our stakeholders. For instance, if you go in as an employer, you will have had a mandate, when you go in. And so sometimes if you are not malleable, you really can ruin, the tripartite, the benefits for the tripartite, if you stick too much to your mandates as a stakeholder, which is why then you need to go in with mandates which these are the non-negotiables, but the following, you can negotiate on those. And I think anyone going into such discussions, should never go in thinking that out of the 10 things I went in with, I want all of those 10. It really can't work like that. And so I believe that we've had a lot of give and take so that, there is benefit for everyone. The tripartite nature, of course, does lead to a slowing of processes. If the department had a choice, as we find actually with the Department of Health is not very au fait or doesn't work much in a tripartite manner. So they will just come through with legislation, don't consult much, but Department of Labor, Department of Mineral Resources, they know these are tripartite departments, and so there is no legislation that will just go through without, proper consultation among the tripartite initially, before it even gets close to NEDLEC or to Parliament. So it does slow the process, but I think it's about, that African adage of, if you want to go far, then you go slowly with other people. And if you want to go quickly, you can go quickly, but then you don't carry the people along. The other challenge is unequal access to resources, and this particularly talks to labor, where sometimes, especially when it comes to intellectual resources, you might find that, on the committees, employers will come with doctors who can represent them in all sorts of committees, or mine managers, or very senior people, whereas with labor, they don't have people who are as educated or as specialized. So I think though labor does try, with experience, you find that people actually improve as they sit on these committees. The last one is, I would say, employers are seen as advantaged, and so no one usually has any sympathy for the employers. So in most of the, negotiations, we find that we are 1 against 2, because the state will always side with labor, because in a way, labor is usually the underdog. So the employers are seen as the ones who got all the power. And so we therefore, when we have something important that we want to put on the table, we need to fight much harder and to negotiate far more skillfully so that we get what we want, because no one has got sympathy for employers. But the benefits, I think, far outweigh the challenges. And those benefits are the equal voice, in occupational health and safety. Tripartism has really worked. As I said, whether you are the CEO, when you are at the Mine Health and Safety Council, your voice is equal to that of the worker. And so it's an equalizer, and it means that we all have a contribution that we can make to occupational health and safety. There is co-creation. No one is, forcing down anything down people's throats. We co-create and we compromise. And I think that all leads to what we create, we all own. There's ownership of the products that we put out there, whether it's a regulation or it is training that we are doing, we all own it, own employers, the state, and the employees. We respect each other, and we drive towards a common goal. And that goal is every worker returning home unharmed every day. So in conclusion, I would say that tripartism is the now and it is the future. And I do hope that more countries adopt, the conventions 144 on tripartism and also the ones on occupational health and safety. And this is because tripartism guarantees the health and safety of workers, because the people who are the most affected and the most vulnerable, which is the workers, have got a voice through tripartism. And I would like to end this by quoting what our organized labor always says. Their motto is, nothing about us without us. So actually, there is no forum where you can talk about labor and they are not there. And this port here is a representation of that. That tripartism is got 3 legs. If you take away any of these legs, then this pot will not stand. And if you have any of these legs that is longer or shorter than the other, then there is no stability in this pot. And that's how it should be maintained. We maintain tripartism as equals. And I think for us, and I hope I have also convinced you that, tripartism can work, and it has worked for us. Thank you very much. I will entertain any questions.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that nice presentation with a slight touch of historic beginning of the effectiveness of tripartite cooperation in South Africa, which has its history from the apartheid times. So you see reasons why there was a need for good cooperation between the workers and the authorities of the government, the state, and the employers. Thank you for that. Very nice. I noted some interesting points, and we'll take them as we start taking questions. So if you have any questions, and this goes to all who are participating, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we can unmute you if you prefer to speak. Otherwise, you can write the question in the chat, and we'll read it to the doctor. But just to start this discussion, you focused. This is where you work on daily basis with the mineral, the mine council, the mine health council, and you can say the mines or minerals in South Africa are important in the economy of the country. So the level of the mine companies or the mining companies and the resources which are available in the mining industry are not comparable to resources other industries may have. So how does the tripartite work in other sectors other than mining in South Africa, and what is your opinion on the extent of development of tripartite in the rest of Africa?
Okay. I think, I'm privileged in that I actually am quite aware of, and I sit in some of the other tripartite forums under the Department of Labor, for instance. It's true that, the history of South Africa was founded on, or South Africa was founded on mining. I'm sure at one stage, at its peak, mining probably contributed about 20% of GDP. But in the past 20 years, it's been going down. We are now on about 8% of contribution is from mining. Other sectors, have got a bigger contribution. But I think the focus on mining is probably still due to the fact that the hazards in mining are quite significant. And so we, even if, we are not contributing as much in terms of GDP, but we've got significant numbers of people that can lose their lives or can be injured, or also their health can be impacted in mining, which is why then it's so important. But the question you're asking is about the other tripartite forums. The Department of Labor has got a similar, doesn't have a mine health and safety or an example similar to Mine Health and Safety Council. It's got a committee which meets under the Department of Labor. It's probably not as resourced as the Mine Health and Safety Council, which has got direct levies from the mines. But what has happened there is that Department of Labor is responsible for the prevention, which is a tripartite organization exists there. So the regulation and everything will all still go through the same processes as we have at Mine Health and Safety Council. They are also responsible for the compensation side. And again, it's on a tripartite basis that you have the compensation board. And what they have done most recently is to, because a lot of the funds are in the compensation side, where the contributions by employers, are being made, they are now seeing that there is no point in us keeping billions, in compensation, so that that money is used when the worker has been injured or has died, and we then compensate the family for death. So they are now actually pulling money from the compensation fund into the preventive side. So you find that, for instance, the Department of Labor was, governments in most areas are very constrained on resources. Department of Labor did not have enough money to hire inspectors, but they've actually now added a whole lot of other inspectors through using the compensation fund to hire the inspectors. And it makes sense for the fund that rather you put your money into the prevention. So even if you are, supposed to be two separate entities in the department, but you shift that money, and even the employers in that board, the compensation board, agree that rather let's put our money into prevention. So you strengthen the prevention side and you prevent the injuries and the disease. In the rest of the continent, I am not very aware of what is happening, but I think tripartism does probably depend quite a lot on the attitude of the state to unions. Because if, for instance, you have a state, I've got examples, I can use Eswatini. Eswatini, even political organizations aren't quite free there and allowed. So unions are also not allowed in Eswatini, which would mean then that if you are talking about that tripartism, it would not be standing on firm legs, because you don't have a strong labor, organized labor, component, which will then ensure that those three pillars are there. So that would be my sort of take on how if you don't have a strong labor movement and if the state puts curbs on unions, then you are likely not to have a very strong, tripartite arrangement. Thank you, Chair.
We have, please continue writing the questions in the chat, whoever has a question. Another item which maybe I want to bring is that in Kenya we have unions, and we have the central organization of trade unions, and then this is the umbrella union, and then we have unions of different sectors. Focus is mostly the unions. You'll hear the unions talking mostly when it comes to salaries. So this is the main thing that you'll hear the unions talking about, the workers' salaries, and so the working conditions. Maybe it's not the most high on the priority lists. How did you, or how did the Mineral Council manage to or how generally in the tripartite cooperation, how did you manage to bring safety to be on top to the extent that you use money from or resources from the compensation fund to preventing fund?
I think, probably unions are like, they evolve. And there's also like, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because even in South Africa, unions evolved out of mainly, the low salaries, the low wages that were there. And so for a long time, it was about wages. Even now, it's still about wages. But what has happened over time is that you mature to the level where occupational health and safety are just as important, and they are put on the table. And I think what works is that you don't lump everything into one. There are forums where people talk the tripartite. And if you look at tripartism, as the ILO says, it goes with social dialogue, and social dialogue talks to all sorts of other things beyond health and safety. So the issues of salaries are very basic. It's like food for a person, your basic needs. And so there are forums which are about, bargaining councils on salaries. And then the other forums, I think we sort of have differentiation. And you'll find that in a union, there are those people who sit on the bargaining councils, which is about the salaries. There are those who are assigned to occupational health and safety, and others, assigned to various other things. So I think it's an evolution, and probably once, people see that the salaries are at least taken care of, then they get time to also look at, but our working conditions here are not right. We are getting injured unnecessarily, and then it becomes an issue.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Another thing is, which you mentioned, this is more on the medical part, or the research work which is done there. You mentioned about occupational TB, and this occupational TB, or occupational constructive pulmonary disease, is something which one can get by cooking with firewood. So, and cooking with firewood is widespread in African societies. So it's only the people living in towns, maybe, who use the cooking gas and such. So using firewood is a cause of occupational TB. So how could you differentiate between that? Come to that point that the Mineral Health and Safety Council took it up, that this is a problem we have. Of course, in the mines there is this problem. Thinking of the population in general, how how much research did it go into to come to that point that we have to do something because this is a problem from our minds?
Okay. I think what you're talking about regarding, exposure in a home environment due to cooking indoors, especially, that is known. But in the case of occupational TB, remember South Africa had mining from the late 1800s, 1880, 86, I think, the first time gold was discovered. And very soon, in around the 1900s, early 1900s, it became clear that a lot of people that were working in the gold mines in particular were developing TB. And the studies, research has been done, which shows, the silica dust, predisposes you to contracting TB. And of course, there's also silicosis, which once you have silicosis, you are even at a higher risk of contracting TB. So the research is there. And I think it's because mining started mainly in the gold mines, and ultimately then it had to be compensated for. So some of our compensation for TB started in around before 1920, that people were being compensated for TB because that link had been shown between the gold mining and TB. Unfortunately, it has sort of just continued into the other commodities, and maybe the one which gets unfairly affected is the platinum industry, where the levels of silica dust really in platinum are not significant at all. But unfortunately, the definition in the legislation is such that if you have spent 9 months to a year working in an underground mine, your TB there qualifies as its occupational TB.
Okay, very interesting, and this shows the importance of research on occupational health and safety, as very many factors overlap to give such problems. So please, any further questions? We have some a few minutes.
Joseph has been here a long time. He must have a question by now. He was the first person on this webinar. I found him here.
Joseph, yeah, they should. Please come with any questions. We still have some few minutes. While we are waiting for that or thinking of new questions, I just want to let you know that the next webinar will be on 12th of October, and we will have Dr. Anne Juguna from Ajira Afya, who will talk about occupational safety and health and well-being programs on well-being for workers, which are connected to occupational safety and health. So that will be 12th of October with Dr. Anne Juguna. We are coming back to Kenya from South Africa, coming back to Kenya. The last one was presented by somebody from Norway. So we've gone all the way to South Africa, and next in 2 weeks' time, 12th October, we are coming back to home ground in Kenya again. So any further questions to Dr. Balfour before we wind up this webinar? It's very quiet today because
I'm thinking I would just like to say that with every challenge there's opportunity. And COVID was a major challenge, but it has presented immense opportunities. I now have presented to people in Kenya. I might join you for your next webinar. And, you have people from Norway, from Australia, all over the world. It's truly amazing what, the connectivity we now have and the amount of sort of interaction we can have because of this. And maybe let me also pitch my own. I'll forward you, Abdul. We are having this is for people who are interested in health. On the 15th of October, we are having a webinar on reprioritizing TB, HIV, and NCDs in the era of COVID-19. And it's talking to the fact that whilst we were busy with COVID, then all these other diseases were relegated to the back burner, and we are now going to face another pandemic from curable diseases. And so I'd like to invite you, because we've got top-notch speakers. Our Minister of Health has confirmed. We have got Lucika Ditu from Stop TB. We have a Deputy Director from UNAIDS in Geneva, and also someone from the ILO in Geneva. So this is what I mean, that if we had tried to organize a meeting, even our minister, we would never have got him, because he would have been too busy, the travel, the this. So it's absolutely wonderful how we can now attend all these webinars everywhere. Thank you, Chair.
Send me the details, and we'll put them in our web page, and we'll spread them to the other groups which we deal with, and hopefully there are many people who will be interested in that. Another thing is this webinar is recorded, so those who could not attend will get a chance to hearing it. And the question now is if it's okay with you that we put your presentation up also.
No problem. I'll forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions? No, we just slightly over time, but if there are questions, we will take them. If there are no more questions and everybody is happy with the good presentation, we've learned something from South Africa, how they do it, and what works and what is challenging. Challenges are always there, no matter what you do, no matter how much resources you have, you'll always have challenges. But this tripartite cooperation is something which we should promote very much, because it brings a lot of ideas, and you know, the workers give their part, and the government pull on their side, and the employers they are concerned about this and that. But once these heads are put together, and everybody is confident that I've been heard. What I had to say is been heard, and it's put into use. So we should promote this. I see we have among the guests, we have John Waweru. I hope it's John Waweru from the Directorate, and he will take this to the other management of the Directorate of Occupational Safety, Health and Services. So if we don't have any more questions, we'll like to say again, Dr. Tutola Balfour, thank you very much for being with us this evening, and we really appreciate to get some different perspective from other places, and this was a very good presentation. So unless anybody has some final words to say, I will close this webinar, and we hope sometimes when things are working, although you mean that we do a lot of communication because of the COVID-19, we do a lot of communication all over the world, we still wish that you could attend our physical conferences when the situation allows. So you can come to Kenya again. You are welcome. We'll put you in our thoughts when we prepare for physical conference, probably in 2021.
Look forward to it. Sorry, I've forgotten now the thank you in Swahili. What
Asante.
Asante sana.
Asante sana. Also, we say asante to you, and have a nice evening, and nice evening to everybody. And we hope to see you all again in the next webinar, which will be on 12th of October. The message will be sent in the normal channel we use, so everybody will be informed. And this presentation should be, and the recording should be ready in a day or two, and the link will be sent. So thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening, and see you soon.
Okay. Very good
Bye.
evening. Bye.